The sound came like thunder in a quiet room, a single slap cutting through laughter and clinking glasses. Every head turned. In the center of the restaurant stood a furious man in a crisp patterned shirt, his hand still raised, his eyes burning with pride. Across from him, an old waiter staggered back, a tray of rice and chicken crashing to the floor. For a moment, the world stopped. Only the trembling of the old man's fingers moved, the kind of trembling that comes not from age, but from humiliation. Then the glass door swung open. A black SUV's reflection glinted outside as a tall man in a navy suit stepped in. His presence shifted the air, calm but heavy, the kind that precedes a storm. His name was Raymond Cole, billionaire, philanthropist, and a man with a memory that refused to die. Because somewhere behind that wrinkled face of the waiter, he saw a ghost from his own past. If stories of justice, loyalty, and redemption move you, stay till the end of this one. It's not just about power. It's about what a man becomes when his conscience wakes. If you feel that spark, hit like, share this story, and subscribe. You'll help us bring more true-feeling tales of brotherhood and moral courage to life. The restaurant breathed with the low hum of afternoon chatter. Cutlery chimed. Laughter bounced off glass walls washed in sunlight. Then, out of nowhere, came a sound that silenced everything. A slap, sharp as thunder in a clear sky. Every voice fell, plates rattled. The music stopped mid-note. At the center of it all stood a man in his mid-40s, broad-shouldered, face tense with frustration. His palm still hovered in the air, the echo of the strike trembling through him. Across from him, an elderly waiter staggered backward. The tray slipped from his hands. Rice and chicken scattered across polished tiles like fallen feathers. For a heartbeat, the old man didn't move. Then his hand rose slowly to his cheek. His eyes glistened, not just from pain, but from the weight of being seen so small before everyone. No one spoke. A boy at a corner table whispered, "Why would he do that?" A manager froze halfway between steps, unsure whether to intervene or disappear. The waiter's breath came shaky, his throat tight as he tried to form an apology that refused to come. The man who struck him straightened his shirt, muttering under his breath, "You should learn to be faster." His words dropped like stones into the silence. He looked around, daring anyone to answer. None did. The restaurant, once filled with the warmth of noon, now felt colder. Through the glass door, a reflection flickered, the outline of a black SUV pulling up. The door opened with a quiet hiss. A tall figure in a tailored navy suit stepped inside. His stride was measured, calm, but his eyes saw everything in a glance. The spilled food, the trembling waiter, the man still standing proud beside him. The newcomer's jaw tightened. He didn't need to ask what happened. The scene told the whole story. The man who had slapped the waiter shifted uneasily, sensing the change in air pressure that only power can bring. "Sir, this is none of your concern," he said, forcing a laugh. But the newcomer's gaze didn't move from the old man. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. The waiter hesitated, voice barely above a whisper. "Samuel, sir." The name hit the newcomer like a quiet bell from a long-forgotten past. His breath slowed. For a second, the polished room faded, replaced by another memory. Water, sunlight, a boy gasping for air, and the same pair of wrinkled hands pulling him to safety years ago. Reality returned in an instant. "You," he said softly to the waiter. "Worked at the old Raymond estate once, didn't you?" The old man blinked, confused. "Yes, sir. Long ago." The man in the suit exhaled, his expression turning from shock to resolve. He turned toward the aggressor. "You just hit the man who once saved my life." The restaurant fell utterly still. The pride on the attacker's face drained to disbelief. Around them, people held their breath. The waiter's eyes widened, tears forming anew. this time not from shame, but from the strange mercy of being remembered. Outside, sunlight spilled through the glass, cutting across their faces like judgment itself. The story that would shake the city had just begun. The moment hung like dust in sunlight, motionless, fragile, unreal. The man who had delivered the slap stood frozen, his arrogance draining away in the silence. Across from him, Samuel's trembling hand lowered from his cheek, his eyes flickering between disbelief and recognition. The tall man in the navy suit took one step closer, and every onlooker instinctively stepped back. "Mr. Cole?" one waiter whispered. The name moved through the room like a gust of wind. Raymond Cole, billionaire investor, known across the city for both his wealth and his restraint. But now there was no calm in his face, only a cold steadiness that made the air itself tighten. He looked at the aggressor. "Why did you hit him?" His voice wasn't raised, yet it filled the space, commanding attention. The man stammered. He was too slow. Kept forgetting orders." Raymond's eyes didn't blink. "And that's a reason to strike an old man?" The aggressor's jaw clenched, but his confidence faltered. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Raymond cut in. "I've seen men like you before. Quick to raise your hand, slow to raise your conscience." The words sliced clean and quiet. The old waiter tried to speak. "Sir, please, it's fine." But Raymond turned to him, his voice softening. "No, Samuel, it's not fine. Not today." He motioned to his assistant, who had followed him in silently. "Chuka," he said, "help him sit." As Chuka guided the trembling waiter to a chair, Raymond crouched slightly, meeting his eyes. "Do you remember a boy who almost drowned in the old estate pool? You pulled him out." The old man blinked. The memory, buried deep under years of exhaustion, rose slowly to the surface. You were that boy?" Raymond nodded once. "You saved my life when I was 8. My father never forgot." Samuel's lips parted. His breath caught. A tremor passed through his shoulders, not of weakness, but of emotion long denied. Around them, the restaurant had gone still again. Even the air seemed to listen. The aggressor's voice cracked the silence. "Look, I didn't know—" Raymond straightened. "That's the problem. You never know the worth of the people you trample until it's too late." His tone carried no rage, just the weight of truth. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a card, and laid it flat on the counter. "This man doesn't work here anymore. Whatever he's owed, send the bill to my office. You'll be paid 3 months in advance." The owner behind the counter started to protest, but one look at Raymond's eyes stopped him cold. Samuel tried to stand, his voice breaking. "Sir, you don't have to—" "I do," Raymond interrupted gently. "You once gave me breath. Now let me return it." He turned toward the door, signaling for Chuka to follow. The crowd parted silently as he walked Samuel out. Outside, the sunlight was soft, almost forgiving. Raymond helped the old man into the black SUV himself, shutting the door with quiet care. As the car pulled away, a waiter whispered, "That man just changed someone's whole life." Another replied softly, "Maybe all our lives." Inside the SUV, Samuel stared out the window, still shaking. "Sir, why would you remember me after all these years?" Raymond glanced at him, a faint smile crossing his face. "Because men forget faces, not kindness. And I owe you both." The car drove toward the city's skyline, the sun glinting off its glass towers. But behind that calm surface, something deeper stirred in Raymond's eyes. An old wound, a shadow not yet healed. Whatever debt had just been repaid was only the beginning of a much larger reckoning waiting ahead. The drive back to Raymond Tower was silent, except for the hum of the engine and the rhythm of the city outside. Samuel sat in the back seat, his eyes heavy with disbelief, his hands folded tightly in his lap as though afraid this new kindness might vanish if he moved too suddenly. Raymond watched him from the side, seeing not just an old man, but a living echo of everything his father had once stood for: honor, humility, and grace under pain. When they reached the tower, the staff at the lobby stopped mid-stride. No one had ever seen their boss guide anyone personally, much less an elderly waiter in a faded uniform. Raymond ignored their stares. He led Samuel to the elevator himself, his hand steady on the old man's shoulder. On the top floor, his office opened to a panoramic view of the Lagos skyline: glass, gold, and storm-colored clouds rolling in from the sea. Raymond turned and said quietly, "You're home now, Samuel, at least until we make things right." Samuel hesitated near the glass wall. "Sir, I don't deserve all this." Raymond's tone softened. "You deserve peace. You've given enough of your life to struggle. Let me give something back." A knock came at the door. Chuka entered, phone in hand, eyes uneasy. "Sir, you might want to see this." Raymond took the device. A video was playing, grainy footage of the restaurant, recorded from someone's phone. The slap, the silence. Then Raymond's face as he walked in. It had already been edited, captioned, and shared online. The title glared across the screen: "Billionaire confronts customer after slapping old waiter." Raymond exhaled slowly. "Of course," he muttered. "The world doesn't wait for truth anymore. It just feeds on noise." Within hours, the video hit every platform. Some praised him, calling him a hero for defending the old man. Others accused him of grandstanding for the cameras. And through it all, the man who threw the slap, Gerald, hid behind silence, spinning rumors that the waiter had provoked him. By nightfall, Raymond's office phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, partners, old friends wanting statements. He ignored them all. "Chuka," he said at last, "set up a press briefing tomorrow. If they want the truth, they'll get it." That night, Samuel couldn't sleep. He sat in the guest room of Raymond's penthouse, the city lights flickering on his tired face. He whispered prayers of gratitude, but also worry. "Lord, don't let this bring trouble to him," he murmured. The next morning, the conference room was packed. Cameras, microphones, flashing lights. Raymond stepped up to the podium, calm but cold-eyed. "Yesterday, I witnessed something I cannot ignore," he began. "An old man was struck for being slow, but what most of you don't know is that this man once saved my life." The room fell silent. "His name is Samuel Adewale," Raymond continued. "And before we call someone worthless, maybe we should ask whose story we're stepping on." A murmur rippled through the crowd, not of gossip, but of shame. For once, even the cameras seemed to hesitate. When it ended, Raymond turned from the lights and walked out, leaving the noise behind. Outside the building, Samuel stood waiting. The moment their eyes met, no words were needed. They both understood. Something much bigger than them had started. As they walked toward the car, thunder rolled in the distance. The storm was coming, and Raymond could already feel the past he thought was buried rising again, one shadow at a time. That night, the rain began quietly, a slow, steady whisper against the glass walls of Raymond's mansion. The city lights blurred behind it, streaks of gold and gray running down like tears. Raymond stood at his study window, a glass of untouched whiskey in his hand, eyes lost somewhere far beyond the skyline. Samuel sat quietly in the adjoining room, reading an old newspaper, unaware of the storm that had begun to stir inside the man who had rescued him. The news channels wouldn't stop replaying the video. Every headline twisted the story differently. Some called it justice, others called it pride. But what unsettled Raymond most was not the attention. It was a message he'd received earlier that evening. No name, no number, just 8 words. "The man you saved carries your father's sins." He stared at the message now, the glow of the phone cutting across the darkness of the room. The words made no sense, yet they crawled under his skin. He remembered his father's empire, the empire Samuel had once served, and all the deals, the betrayals, the secrets buried beneath its marble floors. Could this be about that? Footsteps sounded behind him. "Sir," Chuka said softly, standing in the doorway. "Someone's at the gate asking for you. Says it's urgent." Raymond turned slowly. "Who?" "A man named Gerald." Raymond's jaw tightened. "Let him in." Minutes later, Gerald entered, soaked from the rain, his pride washed down to exhaustion. "You ruined me," he said bitterly. "One moment, and I'm done. My business, my reputation, gone." Raymond didn't move. "You ruined yourself. Don't confuse exposure with injustice." Gerald's voice cracked. "You think you're a saint? You stand up for an old man and pretend your world's clean? You don't even know the man you defended." That struck a nerve. "What are you implying?" Raymond asked quietly. Gerald smirked faintly. "Ask him where he was the night your father's driver disappeared." For a moment, the world seemed to tilt. "What?" 15 years ago, Gerald said. "Chief Cole's driver. Missing, never found. The police closed the case. I worked near the estate back then. And I remember seeing that waiter walking out of the gate past midnight." Raymond stepped closer. "You're lying." Gerald shrugged. "Maybe, maybe not. But some ghosts don't stay buried forever." He turned to leave, his words hanging in the air like smoke. Raymond watched him disappear into the rain, a cold pulse in his chest. He turned back toward the study, but Samuel was already standing at the door, pale, trembling slightly. "Sir," the old man whispered, "there are things from the past I wish I could change." Raymond's heart clenched. "Tell me what happened." But Samuel looked down. "Not tonight. You've done enough for me already. Let me bear what's mine." He turned away slowly, disappearing into the dim corridor, leaving Raymond alone with questions that clawed at his mind. Outside, thunder cracked, loud, unrelenting. And for the first time in years, Raymond Cole felt something he thought he'd outgrown. Fear. Not of losing wealth or name, but of learning the truth about the man he'd become.